So it is very contrasting styles. I don't think they're going to kick the ball away as much, South Africa, because obviously that New Zealand back three will punish that big time if they can get on that ball. So I'm excited, but I feel like New Zealand are slightly ahead just in how they're attacking. But obviously I've made a few predictions, Ireland being one, and I've been wrong. But I'm liking the way they're building throughout this tournament. It's so exciting watching them.
I suppose we're at that time of the year as well where the weather is a factor, and Saturday was the first time we really saw that, so I don't know if it'll be a dry night or not on Saturday. Keith, in terms of recent results, nobody is clearly in the ascendancy. There was the game at Twickenham just before the World Cup where South Africa were brilliant and New Zealand weren't at the races. That was 35-7, but in July in Auckland, New Zealand were 15-point winners against South Africa. And then you go back to 2022, and again it's one each. New Zealand winners away from home at Ellis Park, but then South Africa that same month were winners at home as well by about 15 points. So there's no great tradition over the last 24 months of one side being on top of the other. We have a really difficult final to call here.
No, and it's the biggest rivalry, the most continuous rivalry in the game are these two teams. I think they've had different paths to it. They have played some incredible rugby against each other. They've both lost in this World Cup already, and they're both in the final, and there's lessons to be learned, a whole variety of different things you could write a thesis on this and trying to figure out how you can get to a final of a World Cup. But I thought New Zealand were they didn't get out of third gear against Argentina. They didn't have to. Defensively, they've been incredibly smart. Every time an Argentinian forward took the ball into contact, unless he had one of his pals unbelievably close to him, that was a turnover. And it happened time and time and time again, either a turnover or a penalty. New Zealand are exploiting any space that's given. So for that game, it became almost a training session after a period of time because there was too much space. And if you give any space to New Zealand, they will cut you asunder. And that's one of the things that they have, irrespective of how well they're playing. They can put teams to the sword, and they've a history of doing that. I just see the battle that's going to be there. It's going to be far more rugby played, conditions being considered, because New Zealand will want to run back. That will give an opportunity to the Springboks, looking for a mistake, looking for a turnover, looking to try and play some part of the game in New Zealand's half. That's what they try and go for. And they look to take and pick up penalties. They'll be concentrating on rucks. Every single ruck, they'll put 2 or 3 extra forwards in at different times to try and make certain. Actually, their selection of which ruck to go after has been pretty extraordinary in this World Cup. So they'll make a tackle and they won't go for the ball. They'll make another tackle, they won't go for it. The next one, they'll make it. And whatever it is on the body language of whoever is going to ground, suddenly there'll be a flood of 2 or 3 forwards in, and that's the turnover. That's been one of the marks of both New Zealand and South Africa. Yeah. So, that makes for a very interesting game. And I would see Pollard starting and looking to kick. Because they look to get points on the board and keep it ticking over. That's the way that they've played all the time. But again, I'm looking for relentless pressure of a game. And I don't think... I've been really interested in some of the chat, the idea that this is fun, that this is what we want to do. It's not as if it's pressure. This is as if this is the enjoyment factor. And whether that's just people trying to say the right thing or a thing that might take some pressure off them, it has been pretty continuous in this World Cup, especially from South Africa. Was there pressure on Pollard to make that kick? He said that's the only place he ever wants to be is taking that kick. So, it's interesting. I like the sort of mind games that are going on with it too.